welcome back to another episode of the Script Concierge series where Kathy Kareem and I talk about scripts. Talk about story structure, pitching, anything that has to go into the development of your screenplay and your story so that your film can actually get made. That's the purpose. And today we are going to talk about character intros. Tell us why we're talking about this today, Kathy.
All right. So in your script, when you are introducing characters, it is very important that you give your reader an insight into what your characters look like. I'm a part of a lot of different writing groups, and I've seen a lot of writers asking, how do I introduce my characters? How do I, is there a formula that I can use to make sure that I introduce my characters in a way that doesn't take too long, but that still helps the reader see the characters? And remember, who's reading your scripts could be anybody from a director, a costume designer who needs to know how this character is going to look, a set designer who needs to know what the character's personality is so they know what their home looks like. All of the people who are on a film production are going to look to your introduction of characters to get a clue about who these characters are. So the formula that I like to use, which I have found very effective, is to introduce your character with the age, of course, which is standard script format to introduce your character with the age, but also just one interesting visual physical characteristic. So if you have an age and you have one interesting visual physical characteristic, that's a nice formula to use to introduce your characters in the screenplay that you are working on. So the feature that I'm working on right now is called the Caddy Club. And the leads of the Caddy Club are an ensemble cast of 12-year-olds who become crime-fighting superheroes. They start off as troublemakers who get in trouble with a police officer, but by the end of the movie, they are crime-fighting superheroes who go by the name the Caddy Club because they discover their superpowers in all places on a golf course. So I want to go through the Caddy Club script, which is still in progress, still in development, give you a little behind-the-scenes peek at my writing process, and we're going to talk about some of the character introductions in the Caddy Club so that you can get a sense of maybe how can I introduce the characters in the script that I'm working
on. Okay, so before we go into your specific example, I have a question.
Yes, talk to me.
So do you think there's ever a situation where you would need to actually include some kind of psychological element or the person's state of mind into the actual description, or would you do that in lines following introducing them?
That is a great question. So when it comes to traditionally formatted scripts, we want to make sure that all the information in our scripts is things that can be seen, right? Because remember, scripts are a blueprint for something that's going to end up on a movie screen. So all of your descriptions have to be visual. If you can't see it, it shouldn't be in there. So if there's psychological information that you want to include about your character, that would go in your character sketch. That's a separate document, different from your screenplay, that sort of informs your decisions about the character in your screenplay. What goes into your screenplay is only things that you can see. So if, for example, there's a psychological trait like your character is a psychopath, right? Your character is a psychopath, but that's not really something that you can necessarily see when you look at somebody. Your job as the writer of your film is to make sure that your character takes actions throughout your film, visual actions that the audience can see, and to make sure that those actions communicate to the audience that this character is a psycho, right? They need to do psychotic things. They need to take psychotic actions. So you don't write that they're psychotic in the description. You make sure that they take actions that communicate to the audience that, oh, this person is psychotic. Same thing with something more subtle, like let's say the character is depressed, right? I know that might be tempting to write, just like, she or he is depressed, but you don't want to do that because depression is not something that you can see. What you can do is research the symptoms of depression and look at the different ways that it might manifest visually. And then you can show the character doing visual things in the script that show that character is depressed. So whether it is, I don't know what the symptoms of depression are because I'm not a psychologist, but I'm sure it manifests in certain ways that you can see. And so whether that is, that you show their medication on screen, right? That might be a nice, easy cheat. You might show them, in emotional states. You might show them, withdrawn. All of those are actions that you can show in your character. Same thing with positive emotions and positive psychological states, like, being happy or excited. Whatever the psychology of your character is not something that you can see when you just describe the psychological state. But what you can see is a smile or tears or somebody avoiding interactions or somebody killing people if they're a psycho, right? You can see those actions, and those are the actions that you want to put in your screenplay. And then you'll have a separate document where you do your character bio, and you can put all of this psychology in there and all of that stuff. But you definitely don't want to put it in your descriptions of the character, and you don't want to just say something about their psychological state in the script unless it's something visual. So scripts are about actions. So it's about what we can see, what characters do, and what we can see.
Right. So it would definitely have to be more of a this is the action that they're taking after you have introduced them.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to jump into Caddy Club now?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're going to head over to the Caddy Club script so that we can have a look at the intros for our ensemble cast, right? All right, perfect. Okay. Let us do this.
Okay, let's meet the Caddy Club. So the first member of the Caddy Club, her regular, what do you call it? Her Clark Kent persona, her regular persona that isn't her superpower persona, is Keisha. And Keisha is a 12-year-old, and we introduce her in the script as saying that she's 12 with intelligent eyes and a confident stride. So you can see somebody's intensity in their eyes. You can see the way that somebody walks. So I chose 2 physical characteristics about Keisha so that we can start to get a sense of who she is by looking at her. And this also gives the actor a cue about what they're going to be doing in this scene. And it gives everybody who's reading this a sense of, okay, this person is intelligent and confident, but I didn't just say she's intelligent and confident, right? We get a sense of her eyes and how intense they are, and we get a sense of how she walks. So I chose visual actions to communicate that she is intelligent and confident. So that's Keisha. Next, we have Keisha's little brother, Jamal, who is a 9-year-old. And we introduce him as a jolly 9-year-old with full cheeks. That's how I chose to introduce him in the script. So Jamal's role in the Caddy Club is he's just fun and he's like a big ball of love, and he's a lot of his character is meant to provide a lot of comic relief, and he's the least serious of the bunch and the cutest and the most adorable. So I wanted to make sure that his introduction really captured that this is a cute and happy little boy. So we introduced him as a jolly 9-year-old with full cheeks.
Yeah, jolly definitely gives me, jolly plus the cheeks gives me the vibe that I think you're going for.
Good. So next up, let's meet Ryan. So we introduced Ryan as 12 and too cool for school. So the hope is that with this introduction, we get a sense of, okay, this is a 12-year-old who has a lot of swag. right? That's the intent, to communicate that of the group, this is the Prince Charming, the swagalicious one. And then we have Akil, who's introduced as 12 years old, bespectacled and reserved. So here now we have sort of a nice contrast to our swagalicious Ryan. We have a glasses-wearing, conservative character. And we get a sense of all of their personalities. I hope that was the intention, that all four of them, we can start to see who they are. But we don't do it by just saying that, Akila's a nerd and Ryan is the jock, right? Because that's not necessarily as specific as the qualities that I drew out, which give you a sense of their personality, but through things that you can see. So you can definitely see Too Cool for School. You start to imagine what that looks like, how that person stands, how that person dresses. We can make really clear decisions about that character from Too Cool for School. Same thing with Bespectacled and Reserved, I think, right?
Yeah, because I definitely, sorry.
No?
I definitely saw, I didn't see jock for Ryan, but I did start to formulate, like, this is what Ryan looks like in my head. And I even saw, like, he maybe walks slower than the other children. He's just, like, aware. I don't know why, but I also picture him as, like, aware of his environment, but, like, in a more, like, laid back kind of way, with his
he might
have a little bop.
Yeah, I like that, because that's what I see too. And so I use jock as an example of like a archetypal cool kid. But and you're right, Ryan isn't a jock in this case, right? It's more of like a street cool. Way more street cool than jock, right?
That's what I felt.
So yes. And so I'm glad that was communicated. And same thing with Akil. Like Akil, I think we start to see that he's gonna be of the group a little bit more withdrawn, probably quieter, more soft-spoken. All of these visual and audible elements we start to be able to see just from bespectacled and reserved, right? So
even the giggles nervously that comes right after it like hammers home the point of bespectacled and reserved, because it's just like, oh, he's giggling. Why is he giggling nervously? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like he's not as, he's not as comfortable in his skin maybe as some of the other characters, right? So we have Keisha. We definitely know that she seems pretty comfortable in her skin, but maybe a little bit more on the straight and narrow side, based on her introduction, right? And definitely like book smart. Then we have Jamal, who is like fun and jolly and loving. We have Ryan, who is like, y'all ain't got no time for me, I'm just too cool, right? And then we have Akil, who is reserved and a little bit nervous, and so we get a sense of these four friends, and we introduce them with the formula that works for me, and I hope it'll work for you too, which is you definitely always want to put an age in there and something visual. It can be a physical trait or some aspect of this character that you can see that reveals a bit about their personality. And the other script formatting rule, which we'll just squeeze in there since we're on the topic, is that when you introduce your characters in a script for the first time, you definitely want to capitalize the character names. So if you're new to screenwriting and this is your first script that you're working on, it's a rule that when you first introduce your characters, you definitely want to capitalize their names. Yeah?
That's awesome. So I want to ask you something about the characters. Why did you decide to choose an ensemble cast? I can see it now because we're thinking superhero team, but like what was the process for you to get there? Because a lot of times when we are new to writing, we just want to say, this is my protagonist. I don't know if it's easier that way, but like writing an ensemble cast to me seems like a big, I see how it fits in the story, but it seems like a big step into like, structurally, it seems like a lot.
Well, To be honest, I think in my experience, when it comes to like the structure and outlining, you treat that ensemble cast like you would one protagonist. So it's a unit, right? So the unit has a want, and the unit just happens to have 4 different parts, but that unit has a want. And then I looked at, when I started developing the characters, I looked at how each of them would go about getting the want because of their different personalities, right? So I decided that Keisha was definitely like her overall want. Everybody's overall want in the movie ends up being to save the day because they're superheroes, right? But Keisha's personal want is to be good and to be, on the good side of the law. And in a 12-year-old's world, the law is your parents, your teachers, and all of the, the older people that are around you. So she has her own personal want because she is trying to do good and be good. And then you have Jamal. His personal want is to have a good time. So in every scenario that he's in, he doesn't care if he's in a police station or if he's on the golf course or if he is walking to school. He's trying to like, look, where's the fun at? Where's the fun at? Where can I have a good time? Oh, like, what can I play with? What can I do? What can I? So he has his own personal want. So that translates to when he's saving the day, right? So they want to save the day, but he wants to have a good time saving the day. Keisha now wants to do a good job of saving the day because her thing is always to be good, right? Now, Ryan, his thing is always to be impressive. He always wants people to look up to him. So it's also a bit of a character flaw, right? Because then you're always concerned about, am I looking cool enough? Am I good enough? Am I, So his motivation, even with saving the day, is about, people looking up to him and respecting him and liking him, right? To be liked. Because that's what, often being cool is about. It may not seem that way. It might seem like, you already have all of the attention that you need, but it's often like, to keep that attention, you put on this facade, right?
Yeah,
and then
sorry.
No.
I was gonna say, even in the script, if I'm getting characters right,
yeah,
Ryan was the one that, without giving it away, was like struggling closer to the end before they actually ended up saving the day. Like he was struggling with his power, right?
Yes, exactly. He didn't really get in touch with his power because he was more concerned again about pleasing people and about being cool and, people liking him as opposed to being true to himself.
So we see the insecurity that comes out, even though he's too cool for school.
Exactly.
He's really insecure underneath it all.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we have Akil. And so his motivation is to never stir the waters, right? It's similar to Ryan, but it manifests in a completely different way. So one person decides to, try to be cool and have everybody love them. And then the other person decides, okay, I'm just going to try to not get anybody upset and to just be as quiet as possible and as compliant as possible so that everybody just like is cool and nothing gets unbalanced, right? I don't want to stir the waters, don't want anything to change. Just be cool. I'm just going to be here. I'm never taking a side that's too strong or, I'm never being too firm on anything because I'm just going to try to keep the peace and not get anybody upset, which in itself can be problematic, right? Because eventually you have to choose where you want to be. So each of them have their wants, their personal wants that affect the way that they go after what they want as a group, which ends up being to save the day and to save their friends, their neighborhood friends, from a life of crime and getting into trouble with police officers, right?
So I guess since we're talking character, is it okay if we talk a bit more about like some of your secondary characters?
Yes, let's do it. I highlighted some of those in the script as well, so we can talk about them. And I'm really glad that you mentioned them because these are some of the characters that I really have to work on beefing up the descriptions. So to give you a bit of insight into the story, we have these 4 kids, Jamal, Akil, Ryan, and Keisha. And when they get in trouble with the police officer who finds a weapon in one of their school bags, he sends them to this experimental community service program on a golf course. And when they're on the golf course learning how to play golf, they discover a magical portal that takes them over into another realm where they meet with elders who take a liking to these kids and decide to give them gifts that give them superpowers so that they can go back into the real world and fight the people who landed them in trouble with the police in the first place. So when they're over in this magical world, we meet a number of characters who are the older characters that give these kids the gifts. One of the things that I'm working on right now as a writer is figuring out how to introduce these characters in a way that really captures the magical and fantasy elements of the script that I'm working on, the Caddy Club. Right? Because it's, it's another world. It's not the real world that we're in anymore when we go over into this magical realm. And right now in this draft of the story, I think there's work to be done to really capture the magic of these characters. So I'm definitely excited to give you all sort of look into the process of how I'm going to make these characters more magical.
Awesome. Let's share again.
Okay. So Keisha is the first of the Caddy Club kids to cross over to this magical realm. And when she's there, the first character that she meets is a woman called Miss E. In this version of the script, we introduce her as a regal woman in her 70s. She walks holding a kerosene lamp to light her way, and there's a cloth wrap crowning her head. So I think we have a clear vision of who this Miss E is in terms of, her stature, maybe the way she walks. She's regal, how she might carry herself. We can see her head wrap. We can kind of see who she might be, but we don't get the fact that she's a magical creature. Right? Right now, she seems like she could be in the real world. I don't know if you agree, Rachel, but that's how I see it, right?
Yeah, so if it wasn't, I think for maybe the fact that like Keisha went through the portal and was in the boat, and then Miss E was there. Miss E was one of the one that was calling her.
Yes.
So that made me know that yes, this lady has something about her.
Yeah.
But I think, although you're saying this needs more work, I think a good thing to point out is that the way that you described what she's wearing and what she's holding, I'm getting not necessarily magic from that, but I'm getting wisdom and, some kind of heritage situation.
Yeah.
Feeling like the folklore coming out of it.
Yes.
By how you described what she's wearing. So I think wardrobe can definitely help with that as well, not just for the wardrobe person, but for anybody else reading to be like, okay, I'm getting a feeling. I can see her. I almost see her as kind of I know you said she's regal, but I see her as a little bit hunched over, not bent.
Yes. No.
A slow walker and things like that. That's kind of how I read her from that description.
I could get that. And I think that you can be regal and aged and still show your age and your posture, but you can still carry yourself like a queen, right? And so that's what I was trying to communicate definitely about Miss E. And so if I were to make any tweaks to this, I'm thinking that one of the things that I'm considering adding is a little bit more. Well, this character, she teleports, right? So the kerosene lamp that she has, we do all sorts of fun things with it. So it's used to teleport people, but it's also used to see visions. So the characters in the magical world can look into this lamp and see what's happening in the real world, right? And then Miss E also uses it to transport us. So I'm going to look at those moments in the script and see if I can add a little bit more visuals to those moments when she uses the lamp in that way to kind of add some more magic to her. But what I like about what I have so far is I think it gives a lot of leeway, right, to designer to come in, take those elements and then decide, okay, so how are we going to build this out? Because there's so many wonderful things that we can do with her that, she'll really come across the way that we intend as magical. Yeah?
And now that I can say that it's animation, right?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, okay. So yes, especially now that it is animated, I think the magic can be so much more, even though you could have done it with like VX, yeah, but it can be bigger without costing you a lot of money, is what I'm thinking, because the artist just needs to add it. Versus like if it was still live action, any big thing that we would do to like introduce her, anything big thing that she would do at all would possibly be like cha-ching every time she does something spectacular.
Yeah. You are so right. You are so right. So when COVID struck, we made the decision to take this film that we were originally going to do live action with special effects and green screen and all of that, and to make it 2D animation, building on the work that we've done with Big Man Dan, which was a 2D animated cartoon short. And I'm thinking that it was a good decision on so many levels, because not only do we get to like, be more secure in terms of the health risks, but we also get to do a lot more magic with the pen and the art without having to figure out, okay, how are we actually going to bring this into the real world, right? So there are lots of elements of the script that we get to make way bigger and more fantastical now. So I'm very excited about that.
Cool. So I think we went through all of those that you had highlighted. I think one was Trayvon you had.
Yeah. Let's look at him. Let's look at one of the villainous kind of characters who's actually not really a villain, but he starts out as, as the bad guy, but he turns out to be a good guy. Okay, so we have Trayvon. He's introduced as 17 with a hardened exterior. So, Rachel, let me know, as an outsider, as a reader on this, what do you get from that?
Thug. Like,
all right, good.
When you say hardened, yeah, I just see thug because it says hardened and not hard. It makes me also think that like he's been through struggle, so he might be someone who is of like lower socioeconomic, status, because it's hardened, because life did it to him, and he's not just hard for being hard saved.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, as I mentioned, Trayvon and all of the characters really, like, there's no real clear. They're not. The bad guys aren't really just bad guys, right? That's way too simple. So he has good qualities which come out towards the end of the script. And so hardened for me, it was like a shield, right? It's a shield that you put up to protect yourself from the world and from life and from whatever life has thrown at you. And so Trayvon with the hardened exterior, the idea is that we have this 17-year-old boy who is young enough that we can still kind of see the boy in his face, but that who presents himself in a way where it's like, you can't mess with me, right? You can't mess with me at all, and I'm hard like a rock. So he's one of the gang affiliated characters in the script.
Yes. Is he the one that was dancing to the music?
Trayvon. That was one of the twin brothers, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So they're also in the gang, and it's Dre and Drew, and they're the ones who were bubbling in the Tasoka and thing, when the music started playing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I think, I had an easy time reading the script the first time I read it. And I had my own pictures of kind of what everybody would look like. I think Keisha sticks in my mind just because like she's the first one that found the special worlds, the dream, the realm or whatever. So she kind of sticks in my mind, and then I think Ryan also sticks in my mind because he had like such a big journey in terms of getting to the point where he was able to use his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe it was the twins too. And then on the bad guy side, the twins kind of stuck out to me. They were so comical, like really funny in their like actions. and stuff. And I guess that's one thing we can like kind of touch on, because if someone is like who's a new writer is watching this, it might be good to talk about like how scripts are more action than dialogue.
Yeah. So it goes back to like how you're gonna really paint your characters. Isn't about what they say really. Like their dialogue is like the cherry on top of the ice cream, right? So you have this ice cream cone, and the ice cream cone and the ice cream is built by what these characters are doing, what they look like. Even when they are still and not like taking really big actions, they're still doing something, and that something that they're doing communicates something about who they are. So what they do throughout the script and what they want and what they go after and how they get it tells us about these characters more than what they say. And then what they say is just like a cherry on top, right? So in film school, they always say you should be able to watch a movie with the sound off and still understand exactly what it's about, because the visual should tell the story, and then the dialogue just helps give you that extra punch. So the dialogue is definitely very important, and making sure that each character says things in a way that is true to their character and that, you know, is true to the genre, because genre is really important too when it comes to dialogue, right? Because if you're making an action movie or a fun family movie or a comedy, you want to have dialogue that reflects the spirit of the thing, and same thing with horror, right? So it's very important, but it's still more decorative than the action, right? It comes on top as a layer, and it's often one of the last things that I work on in terms of refining in my script. So, you know, all the structural work comes before the plot, what they're doing, all the actions, and then one of the last things I'll do is refine the dialogue and start to do table reads and that sort of stuff to hear how the dialogue is sounding and make those kind of changes.
Yes, because when you're following the path in terms of structure, in terms of doing your log line, then doing an outline, then doing a treatment, and building things out from there, I think it's easier to make sure that you have all those like movement action scenarios versus like if you aren't doing that, if you're just putting pen to paper, it's easy, and like starting your actual script, it's easier to just get trapped in the writing of dialogue if you're not using structural cues.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a script recently that was really dialogue heavy. It had a lot of like a voiceover narrator, and like, you know, a narrator telling us everything that was happening on the screen and that kind of stuff, which can work depending on the genre. But I've generally found that if you're writing a good movie, you find yourself relying on the dialogue too much to explain what is happening, something needs to shift, right? It's like I have a character and the character says, I am so upset. I am going to destroy your life, and I am going to then go to the market and buy a bunch of fruits, right? That's the order that the character wants to do it. So that's cool. But what would be better is you saying the character enters the room. Her face is drawn and her lips are tense. She looks around. She picks up the first thing that she sees and throws it across the room with a huge scream. And then you have dialogue. Ah, right? Okay, this person is upset. We just communicated that. We clearly know right now, right? And then she looks at a picture and she thinks. Cut to exterior market. We see her buy her fruits and stuff. And then if you want, she can deliver her villain line and place a call or go confront the person and say, I am going to destroy your life. Because a little bit of that is okay too, right? But most of it we want to communicate through action, as much of it as possible. And even after she says, I'm going to destroy your life, right? Because we delivered that line, we still want to see, well, how you're going to do it. What action are you going to take to destroy this person's life? You're full of big chat? Well, come, let me see if you can defend it. No, what are you going to do? So you have to see the character, you know, pick up guns or connive, get a team together, plot to destroy, whatever it is that the character is doing, we need to see them do it as opposed to just say, I'm going to do that. And this is again, if we're talking about like movies that are meant for like theatrical release. Soap operas are a completely different thing. Plays are a completely different thing. And soap operas, one of the reasons that we get to do so much of that, they get to do so many episodes and that they're so cheap and that they're such great daytime entertainment and they're awesome, is because they can do things like just talk about what they're to do without really showing too much of it, because soap operas are all about talking. They're talkies. It's all about now, I am, whatever. I can't think of an example because it's been a while since I've watched like Young and Restless, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like you'll see the characters talking all the time about what they're going to do, what they did, what happened, who slept with who, and they just talk. That's all they do, talk. Movies that are meant for like video on demand platforms and theaters are a completely different thing. We want to know what the characters are doing and to see them doing it.
Yes, because even I think some police procedurals, I guess the ones that have like the court part to them, there's a lot of talking, a lot of like exposition in them. But I liked what you said earlier about you're supposed to be able to watch a video on silent and still get it, because that's what I do. If I see something on social media, I'm gonna watch it to make sure that it's exciting first before I, like put my ears through the stress of whatever noise is happening in the video.
It's so true. You'll be scrolling through your timeline and you like something has to catch your eye before you turn that mute button off and decide to listen, right? So that's a good example.
And that's also the practice. Like if you're a new writer, you're not sure how to do that. To watch a movie on pause and see how that goes, because it might help you to like look at just the actions. Because that's how I started watching things on silent. Because I'm like, I'm doing this for educational purposes to actually just be like, okay, let me just focus on the actions in these scenes. And then after that, I'm just like, what is audio? What is dialogue?
Right? And now, don't get us wrong, because dialogue is one of the like funnest part of a film, and like that cherry is really important. The cherry is super important. It's like the bow on the present, and it's just not as nice without it. I watched Dance Hall Queen the other day again for the first time in a while, and what does that character say? It's like it's walk and live, talk and bombaclat die, right? That line is like one of the best lines in cinema history. Like every single time. It's like, oh gosh, I can get better than that. And, villains especially sometimes get the best dialogue. And so it's really good. It's really important and fun to have good dialogue, but you can't rely on it to tell your story. It has to be just like that cherry on top, that bow on the present.
Because even comedy, a lot of my favorite comedies are the ones that are like slapstick humor, where it's very like physical comedy. But as you said, the words, they really like topple you over. Like you're already like, haha. But then when they say the words, you get that like, especially the timing. If the timing is right, if the actor can pull off the timing, you get that gut laugh. You're just like, oh, because it's situational. It's like, this and this not supposed to go together, but it's funny, right?
Yes, exactly. So, whatever you are working on, I welcome you to start thinking about how you're going to introduce your character. Remember that you don't need to complicate it. Just think about something unique about your character that would make an interesting physical description. Put a little bit of that in your description. Make sure to put their age. Make sure to capitalize them the first time that you introduce them in your screenplay. And then once you do all of those things, then you'll be really well set up to make sure that anybody who reads your script starts to get a good idea of who your characters are and what they look
like. Amazing. All right. Thank you for opening up your script, your incomplete script to share with us, or your script in the works to share with us, because Not a lot of people would do that.
Yeah.
I want you to see it.
I understand, and I sometimes feel that way too. But then I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's gonna change. We're all learning. So if there's anything that people can learn from me learning, I'm excited to share.
Thank you. That's so gracious of you. Okay, so until I guess our next one, if you found this helpful, tell us if you want to. Do we want people to share their character descriptions if they need help? Because we could probably workshop some stuff in the comments if you want. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so yeah, let's workshop some stuff in the comments. If you need help with your character descriptions, we will make that available to you because, again, we're just here to be a resource. And then like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe to see more from us. We will be back with another episode of the Script Concierge series. I am Rachel Osborne. She's Kafi Kareem, and thank you so much for watching.